Now we're going to have some fun and run the app in the simulator. Building and running an app in Xcode means compiling all of the source code files in the project into something that runs on the device or the simulator. And it's really a blast to see what you get when you build and run a project, especially one that you've created yourself. And doing it is really relatively simple. First, we choose a scheme in the Scheme menu. Now, a scheme tells Xcode the purpose of the built product. The schemes in the Scheme pop-up menu specify which targets or actual products to build. You notice that there's one called iOS device, which is the actual device, iPhone or iPad, that you want to run the app on. But the others are versions of the simulator that match different versions of iOS. When a scheme specifies a target to build, it also specifies the configuration to use when building it. Along with that configuration is a designation of which debugger to use when testing it, and which executable to launch when running them on the iPhone or simulator. Xcode automatically creates several schemes with configurations for you, and you can also create more schemes and edit any of the schemes down here. Right now, you just want to make sure the scheme is set to the simulator and the proper SDK. If it isn't already chosen, choose iPhone 4.3 Simulator from the Scheme pop-up menu. Here's what that means. When you download an SDK, you actually download multiple SDKs, a simulator SDK and a device SDK for each of the current iOS releases. At this moment, iOS 4.3 has just been released, and many iPhone users are still using iOS 4.2. To make sure the app runs fine on iOS 4.2 as well as 4.3, you could choose iPhone 4.2 Simulator. An app that runs without errors on iOS 4.2 will probably run without errors on previous iOS versions and also iOS 4.3. However, to see if it runs properly on iOS 4.3, choose iPhone 4.3 Simulator. By the way, you should use the Simulator SDK for iOS 4.3 for apps that you want to submit to the App Store until a new version of the iOS is released, and then you would use the newer version. Next, you would click the Run button to build and then run the current scheme. You could also just choose Product Run if you prefer. There it is, the Hello World app in all its glory running in the simulator. Let's click on the simulator window and move it to the side for a second. Now you can see in the status pane that it tells you that it's running Hello World on the iPhone simulator. Right before that, it told you all about the build progress and any errors, such as compiler errors or warnings. But in this case, the build was successful. So let's look at the simulator. It appears at first like any iPhone model, and your first app looks a lot like what you see here. To see what it looks like on an iPhone 4, choose Hardware, Device, iPhone Retina. The simulator changes to look more like an iPhone 4. By the way, you can move back and forth between those device versions as you wish. By doing so, you also cancel the app, but we can get back to the app in a minute. Let's change it back to iPhone Retina. The reason why you would switch back and forth is so you can see the way the app will look on different iPhone models. The Retina reference is to the enhanced, higher resolution Retina display of the iPhone 4. It's also used on 4th generation iPod Touch models. Now the simulator works pretty much just like an iPhone. If you swipe, you see that there are other apps installed, including Hello World. Click on the icon for Hello World again to launch it. When you run your app, Xcode installs it on the simulator or a real iPhone device if you have specified the device as the active SDK, and then it launches it. Using the hardware menu and your keyboard and mouse, the simulator mimics most of what a user can do on a real iPhone, albeit with some limitations which I point out soon. Now let's click the Home button at the center of the bottom of the simulator window to quit your app, just as you would do on an iPhone. As you can see, the app appears with its icon, along with other apps that have been installed in the simulator. You click the icon once to launch the app again, and the app appears again. You can then click inside the text field to type a message, and the keyboard pops up. When you're done with the keyboard, click Done.